We've talked about their regrets, we've talked about their beliefs, and we've even talked about their deaths. But one thing that most of you will definitely agree on is the fact that they weren't always like this. Sure, the paths that they chose shaped their identities, but before any hidden blade, any creed, or any oath, they were just ordinary humans with their own lives, problems, and dreams. So what exactly did they do before becoming assassins? It's a fascinating question, isn't it? And in this video, we're going to uncover exactly that. So let's begin. Before he became a legendary assassin, Altair was something else entirely. Born in 1165, he was the son of Umar ibn La Ahad, a Muslim assassin, and Maud, a Christian. His life, however, was tragic from the very start. In 1176, during the siege of Masyaf by Salahuddin's forces, Umar, Altair's father, was sent on a mission to deliver a message. But in chaos, he killed a noble in Salahuddin's camp. To secure peace, Salahuddin demanded Umar's life. Complicating matters, the assassins had captured a spy within their ranks, Ahmad Sofian, father of Altair's future rival Abbas. And it was Ahmad's betrayal that directly led to Umar's capture. The Brotherhood threatened that if it didn't hand over Umar, Ahmad would be executed. In a selfless act, Umar volunteered to die, saving both the Brotherhood and Ahmad. Before his execution, he entrusted Al-Mualim with a single crucial task: to care for his only son, Altair, and to train him as an assassin. After that, Umar was executed, and temporary peace was restored. The aftermath left lasting scars. Loyal assassins blamed Ahmad for Umar's death, and overwhelmed with guilt, Ahmad committed suicide in front of Altair, a moment that would haunt the young man forever. Abbas, his son, who witnessed none of this personally but influenced by his father's legacy, harbored deep anger towards Altair, blaming him for failing to prevent Umar's death, and thus began a rivalry that would stretch for decades. Despite these tragedies, Altair trained relentlessly, earning the rank of Master Assassin at just 25, making him the youngest and most skilled assassin of his era. But this was just Altair's early life. The events that lead directly to the first Assassin's Creed game are explored in the mobile game Altair's Chronicles. Set in the year 1190, here Al-Mualim sends Altair on a mission to recover a powerful piece of Eden, known as the Chalice, an artifact said to have the power to unite all factions, and potentially ending the Holy Wars. Altair's quest takes him across Damascus, Jerusalem, and Aleppo. But as he digs deeper, he realizes that things are not what they seem. Upon finally reaching the Chalice's temple, he opens the chest only to find it empty. The Templar commander there, Basilisk, reveals the truth. The Chalice is not an object, but a woman, Adha. Altair chases Basilisk to a ship and defeats him, but Adha is taken away on another vessel. But before she departs, Altair promises that he will find her someday, a promise of love and loyalty that even Ubisoft seemingly forgot. Meanwhile, Altair uncovers betrayal within his own ranks, Harash, an assassin who had secretly allied himself with the Templars. Enraged after finding out, Altair infiltrates a stronghold in Aleppo and eliminates Harash, securing the Brotherhood once more. Filled with pride and confidence in his abilities, Al-Mualim soon sends him on another mission to recover an artifact in Solomon's temple. And from there, the story that we know begins. We all know Eivor Kenway as one of the most feared pirates in the Caribbean. But pirates aren't born, they're made. And Eivor's life before Black Flag is far more tragic, desperate, and human than most people realize. According to the novel Assassin's Creed Forsaken in the in-game database, Eivor's story starts far from the Caribbean. He was born on 10th March 1693 in Swansea, Wales, to Bernard Kenway, a former soldier turned farmer, and his mother, Lynette Hopkins. The Kenways weren't starving, but they lived a hard, simple life where every coin mattered. Growing up surrounded by this struggle, Eivor developed a burning desire for something bigger. He hated the idea of dying as a nobody in a muddy Welsh field, and that rebellious spark, it has been there since day one. In 1710, everything changed. Eivor met Caroline Scott, a noblewoman who was way above his social class. The two fell in love, but Caroline's parents despised him. To them, Eivor was just a poor, directionless troublemaker with no future. But despite all that, that, they ran away together and got married. However, marriage didn't calm Edward's ambition, it made it worse. Now, more than ever, he felt the weight of Caroline's status and wanted to prove himself worthy, not just to her parents, but to himself. Their arguments became constant and Edward's frustration kept growing. And then came the perfect excuse for escape. During the final years of England's conflict with Spain, privateering exploded, which in simple terms meant legalized piracy, where you could attack Spanish ships, steal their cargo, and keep a share of the loot. To Edward, this looked like the fastest way to climb out of poverty and become the man he believed he should have been. Caroline begged him to not go, but he ignored her. Edward promised her that he'd be gone only for 3 years, but instead, Caroline left him and returned to her parents. Still determined to make something of himself, Edward sailed to the West Indies in 1712. There, he met legendary figures like Edward Thatch, better known to most people as Blackbeard, Benjamin Hornigold, and James Kidd. But in 1713, the war abruptly ended, and thousands of privateers, including Edward, were left jobless. No war meant no contracts, and no contracts meant no money. And many of them, desperate and angry, turned to piracy. Edward joined the crew, but fate wasn't done with him yet. Their ship was attacked, chaos struck, and from those desperate moments, the Edward Kenway that we know was born. Basim was a thief in Assassin's Creed Mirage, but what pushed him into that life? Let's break it down. Just like many assassins, his life also started out as normal. Basim Ibn La Ahad was born in the year 844 in Samarra, during the Abbasid Caliphate. His father Ishaq was a respected architect, the man originally responsible for designing the Great Mosque of Samarra. Not much is known about his mother, but we know she died when Basim was very young. Everything changed when someone else took credit for Ishaq's work. Because of this false accusation, he was exiled. At this time, Basim was only 7 years old. Ishaq left his family and Basim's mother died soon after. And hence the child who once had a normal family was suddenly left with nothing. With no guidance, no protection, and no one to rely on but himself, Basim was forced into a life of thievery, deception, and street survival. The skills that later shaped him into the man we meet in Assassin's Creed Mirage. But what happened to his father? Here's the interesting part. The lore tells us that Ishaq didn't die as people believed. He was captured and held hostage in Alula by a band of robbers led by a man named Abyss. And the upcoming Valley of Memory DLC will focus heavily on this mystery, and maybe we'll finally see whether Basim gets the chance to confront or rescue his long-lost father. Let us know in the comment section if our prediction was right. The founder of the Assassin Brotherhood, Bayek, is one of the most iconic figures in the franchise, yet his backstory is rarely discussed. Bayek was born in the Siwa oasis to Sabu, a Medjay, and Ahmose, his mother, in the year 85 BCE. Keep in mind that this date isn't 100% accurate, but that's the closest we have. In ancient times, people were often identified by their place of birth rather than parental names, which is why he became known as Bayek of Siwa. His father, a devoted Medjay tasked with protecting the people of Egypt, secretly trained Bayek in the same ways, though he didn't tell him the full extent of the duty he would one day inherit. During his upbringing, the Order of the Ancients began to see Medjays as a threat to their power, and plotted to eradicate them entirely. Amidst this, Bayek met a remarkable young woman named Aya, who had just moved from Alexandria to Siwa to continue her studies. They quickly formed a bond, but Aya's philosophical shift from the old gods caused tension with Bayek's family, who remained devoted followers of Egypt's traditional ways. Bayek eventually gathered the courage to propose to Aya. Initially, she declined, thinking his father's influence held him back. But after clearing the misunderstanding, she accepted and they were married. Not long after that, tragedy struck. Bayek's father was called to battle the Order and was killed. The Order, seeing Medjays as a serious threat, hired a deadly bounty hunter named Bayan to wipe out their bloodlines. Bayan's reputation was terrifying. He was one of the deadliest hunters in the entire Assassin's Creed lore. Bayek eventually confronted Bayan, uncovering the truth. His true master, Raya, had orchestrated the killings. After a brutal fight, Bayek killed Bayan and then took the fight to Raya himself, marking his first assassination of an Order member. With the immediate threat eliminated, Bayek, Aya, and their friend Hepzibah became the last Medjays standing in Egypt. Some years later, Bayek and Aya welcomed a son, Khemu, setting the stage for the events we witness in Assassin's Creed Origins. Most of you already know who Ezio is, but just for the sake of this video, let's cover his origins. Unlike Edward and Altair, Ezio was born into privilege. His father, Giovanni Auditore, was a respected banker in Florence, a position that carried both wealth and influence. Combined with his family's connection to Lorenzo de' Medici, the Auditore family quickly became one of the city's most powerful households. Speaking of his family, Ezio had two brothers, Petruccio and Federico, and a younger sister named Claudia. From a young age, he lived a carefree life, far removed from the struggles of assassins and Templars. But being the son of a master assassin came with certain perks. His father personally taught him skills like dueling, horse riding, and archery. Even if we don't see all of it in the games, Ezio's proficiency with the crossbow shows that these lessons stuck. Instead of heavy work, Ezio handled lighter family duties, like delivering letters, running errands, and learning the family trade in subtle ways. Then just before the events of Assassin's Creed 2, he met a woman named Cristina Vespucci, and was immediately smitten. But his pursuit of her caught the attention of Vieri de' Pazzi, heir to another wealthy and influential family and secretly aligned with the Templars. A quarrel broke out between the two, sparking a rivalry that would grow into gang wars, culminating in the conflicts we see in the very first memories of Assassin's Creed 2. And from there, Ezio's story of vengeance, discovery, and destiny began. Just like Ezio, Kassandra's story is widely known, but there are still some hidden details that make her journey even more fascinating. She was born in Sparta in the year 458 BCE to Myrine, daughter of the great King Leonidas I, and the famous mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras, whose life was mysteriously extended thanks to the staff of Hermes Trismegistus. Shortly after her birth, Pythagoras left Kassandra and Myrine to study the secrets of the Isu on a distant island. After Pythagoras' departure, Myrine met a Spartan general known as the Wolf. And despite knowing the fact that Kassandra wasn't his biological child, he raised her as his own. And later, he fathered his own son Alexios with Myrine. As a Spartan, Kassandra was trained from birth in survival, combat, and the ways of a warrior. On one of her early trips to the woods, Myrine gave her her grandfather's spear, a weapon that would remain by her side for the rest of her life. But fate had a cruel twist in store. The Pythia, also known as the Oracle under the influence of the cult, prophesied that one of Nikolaos' youngest children would bring Sparta to ruin. To prevent this, her father attempted to sacrifice Alexios. In a desperate bid to save her brother, Kassandra intervened, throwing both her brother and a Spartan elder in the process. This accident branded her as a traitor, and she was thrown out of Sparta by the very man who had raised her. Kassandra eventually found her way to Cephalonia, where a con artist named Marcos took her in. Under his wing, she began running errands and learning the streets. She was also cared for by a woman named Anais. As she grew, Kassandra became a mercenary, trained by seasoned fighters like Photios and Hathor, hence earning the nickname Misthios. And later, she worked for Marcos, taking on jobs across the island. In the year 433 BCE, she and Marcos took in a young Athenian girl named Phoebe. Her life on Cephalonia wasn't peaceful for long. She clashed repeatedly with the Cyclops gang, a one-eyed bandit crew that terrorized the island and sought to control it. But things took a sharp turn when they attacked her home directly, an event that would ignite the Odyssey, which we all live ourselves. Eivor was born in the year 847 CE, a year that Norse would later remember as the Plague Year. Her parents, Varin and Rasta, were minor Norse nobles. They were respected, but not respected enough for their neighbors to risk sheltering them while plague spread through the lands. With nowhere else to go, Rasta's brother Imar took them in. And there, in his home, she gave birth to Eivor. The family stayed for some time, and Eivor spent her earliest years playing alongside Imar's son, Barid, until the family left for Dublin far across the sea. Eventually, Varin moved his family to the small village of Hilbor, which was the territory of King Styrbjorn of the Raven clan. To protect his home and secure alliances, Varin forged strong ties with Styrbjorn, ties that would shape Eivor's entire life. Growing up, she became inseparable from Styrbjorn's son, Sigurd, and their bond became as strong as blood. But in 856 CE, everything changed. Varin organized a feast to formally pledge loyalty to the Raven clan. Instead of celebration, came to slaughter. Jotve the Cruel, leader of the Wolf clan, stormed the village, killing both of Eivor's parents before her eyes. As she fled, a wolf lunged at her throat, leaving the scar and the title that will follow her forever: Wolf-Kissed. Orphaned, broken, and angry, Eivor was adopted by Styrbjorn and raised as part of the Raven clan. She grew into a fierce warrior, joining raids and expeditions across Norway. But when Sigurd left around 870 CE to travel east and the west, Eivor was left behind with only one purpose: drive Jotway's influence from their lands. And she did. She liberated villages, crushed warbands, and even captured one of Jotway's scouts, a woman named Gull. Eivor expected praise in return, but Styrbjorn offered only anger. He believed that her actions would provoke Jotway, and he wasn't wrong. Furious, Eivor vented her rage on the training grounds until Gull whispered a secret to her. She told Eivor of a hidden treasure known as the Aesir's Hoard. Suspicious but hungry for answers, Eivor followed her. Their journey led them to Heimdall's temple, already ravaged by the Wolf clan. There, Eivor was ambushed, and during the struggle, a hidden chamber opened, revealing an Isu apple. Gull seized it immediately. In that moment, she revealed her true nature: a sage, claiming her life was not her own. The apple's power froze Eivor in place as the temple collapsed around them. The artifact then slipped from Gull's hands and both plummeted into the abyss. In those final seconds, Eivor had a choice: to reach for the apple and die, or return home and save her people. She chose the latter and saved her clan. Gull and the Horde were lost forever, and Eivor raced home, cut down Jotway's raiders, and saved the village. This time, however, Styrbjorn praised her, as she had chosen loyalty over glory. Years later, in 872 CE, Eivor finally picked up Jotway's trail again, and going against Styrbjorn's orders, she launched a daring attack, only to be captured. And from there, the story of Assassin's Creed Valhalla begins. Returning to the Kenways, let's talk about Haytham. Haytham Kenway was born in the year 1725 to Edward Kenway and Tessa Stephenson Oakley, an English noblewoman Edward met later in life in London. Unlike his father, Haytham grew up with wealth, tutors, and a mansion. But Edward refused to let him become spoiled. He trained Haytham personally, teaching him discipline, swordsmanship, and how to carry himself with honor. Because Haytham wasn't Caroline Scott's son, Edward's daughter Jenny never accepted him and treated him with cold resentment. Meanwhile, a man named Reginald Birch, secretly a high-ranking Templar, became close to the family. He acted like a trusted friend, but behind the scenes, he had other plans. And everything changed on Haytham's 10th birthday. A group of armed intruders broke into the Kenway estate. Edward fought back, killing one of them, but the rest overwhelmed him and stabbed him to the chest. Haytham witnessed his father being murdered, and in the chaos, he grabbed a blade and stabbed one of the attackers in the eye, marking his first ever kill. But what Haytham didn't know was the truth. Birch sent those men. Jenny was kidnapped during the attack and later sold into slavery, but Birch lied, saying it was just a random robbery. And after seeing Haytham's potential, Birch took full control of the boy's future. He twisted the truth about Edward and trained Haytham himself, and eventually indoctrinated him into the Templar Order, shaping him into one of their most gifted operatives. Years later, Haytham rose to become a highly skilled Templar agent, and was given a mission to kill the assassin Miko, who was protecting a young rebel that Haytham wanted. Haytham fought Miko and nearly finished him, but the assassin managed to escape for the moment. Then, in 1754, Birch gave Haytham vital intel. A first civilization temple existed somewhere in the American colonies, and the key to open it was in Miko's possession. And Miko was last spotted in a London opera house. And that moment sets the stage for the legendary opening of Assassin's Creed 3. Now, coming to Connor, unfortunately we would have to skip him, because much of his story is already known by the fandom and there isn't anything new that we can add. Shay Cormac was born on September 12, 1731 in New York City, to Irish immigrants from Dublin. His mother died during childbirth, and his father, a merchant marine, was often away at sea. Left in the care of his aunt, Shay grew up tough and street smart, learning to defend himself from an early age under the guidance of his close friend and brotherly figure, Liam O'Brien. At just 8 years old, Shay joined his father at sea to earn his own wages, and he quickly proved himself a skilled fighter, after being trained in sword and pistol to survive frequent pirate attacks. And using his skills, he even saved his father's life once in close combat. Tragically, in 1747, a fierce storm claimed his father and most of the crew, leaving Shay devastated and directionless. Shaken by this loss, he came back to New York and fell into depression, until fate reunited him with Liam, who had recently joined the Assassins. Liam introduced Shay to Achilles Davenport, and though Shay hesitated due to doubts about the brothers' morality, he eventually joined their ranks. During his training, Shay also developed feelings for fellow recruit Hope Jensen, though he never expressed them openly. By 1752, Shay and Liam, along with their fellow assassin Chevalier, were sent on a mission to Port Menhir, and in that same mission, the Royal Navy attacked them, forcing them to left stranded on an island, hence setting the stage for the events of Assassin's Creed Rogue. Just like Connor, Arno's story is fairly well known, but a few details are worth highlighting. Arno was born in Versailles to a French father, Charles Dorian, and an Austrian mother. Growing up in privilege, he had access to top tutors and a wealth of books, much like Haytham Kenway. From a young age, he traveled across Europe and North Africa alongside his father, who was an assassin on missions. In 1776, a tragic event shaped his life. During a visit to the palace, his father instructed him to wait on a chair, but when Arno looked up, his father had been killed. Orphaned, Arno was adopted by Francois de la Serre, who was a Templar. As a boy, he fell in love with Elise, de la Serre's daughter, and spent much of his youth with her. By the mid-1780s, Arno unlocked the Eagle Vision, though at first he could only use it for a few seconds at a time. As time passed, Arno and Elise grew apart, largely due to their frequent trips to Paris, while Arno remained confined to Versailles. By 1788, Arno moved to the poorer districts of Versailles, spending his days playing cards and charming the locals, though he never lost contact with his adoptive family. A year later, a lost card game with two blacksmith brothers set the events of Assassin's Creed Unity in motion. Just like many assassins, Naoe's story is shown in flashbacks during the game, but here's the core of her early life. Naoe was born in the year 1564 in Japan's Iga province to Fujibayashi Nagado and Tsuyu. Both were prominent members of the Kakoshiba Ikki, better known as the Japanese Brotherhood of Assassins. Her early years were peaceful and normal until her mother Tsuyu was pulled back into the assassin duties after learning that the imperial regalia of Japan came under threat. While Tsuyu led the mission against the Shinbakufu, Naoe stayed behind with her father. The mission, however, ended in disaster. The assassins were believed to have been wiped out. Naoe thought her mother had died, unaware that Tsuyu had actually survived and left Iga to search for the stolen regalia. Raised solely by her father, Naoe was trained rigorously in swordsmanship, stealth, and freerunning, becoming a proud and skilled member of the Iga Ikki. By the time the events of the game begin, she's a formidable shinobi, but as we see, her path is about to get far more complicated. Yasuke's story, on the other hand, is fascinating because unlike other protagonists, he is a real historical figure. He was an African man who arrived in Japan alongside the Jesuit monks. His strength, skill, and presence impressed Oda Nobunaga, one of Japan's most powerful warlords, who took Yasuke under his wing and trained him to become a samurai. Later, during the Second Tensho Iga War, Yasuke was sent to Naoe's homeland, where he fought fiercely and helped destroy much of the Kakoshiba Ikki. This marked a turning point in his life as he chose to ally himself with Naoe and help end the Order's influence in Japan. For the first time ever, we're including Desmond Miles in our video. His backstory is a bit scattered, but here's the summary. Desmond was born to William Miles and an unnamed mother, both members of the Assassin Brotherhood. By the time he was born, the assassins were struggling due to the Great Purge, so he spent most of his early life at an assassin compound known as the Farm. There, he trained with other children under the strict supervision of his father, who, in Desmond's own words, scared him. Growing up surrounded by stories of assassins and Templars, Desmond grew tired of it all and dismissed his parents as conspiracy freaks. On his 16th birthday, he escaped the compound and started a new life as a bartender in New York, even fathering a child without knowing it, until 1st September 2012, when the Templars found him. He was taken to Italy to participate in the Animus Project, where he began reliving the memories of his ancestor, Altair Ibn La Ahad, hence beginning the Assassin's Creed. After Desmond's death, Ubisoft tried to continue the modern-day story with Layla Hassan, though her arc has been a hit or a miss. Still, her backstory is fascinating. Layla was born in 1984 in Cairo, Egypt to Ashraf and Zainab Hassan. When she was just 2 years old, her family migrated to Queens, New York, where she grew up. From a very young age, Layla was intensely curious, disassembling toys instead of playing with them, and developed a strong interest in engineering. After high school, she enrolled in the University of California to study electrical engineering. Her talent didn't go unnoticed because Sophia Ricken, the Abstergo scientist from the Assassin's Creed movie, recruited her. Layla accepted the offer in 2006, dropped out, and started working at Abstergo, firstly in the L+D division, then later in research and development. Her dream was always to work on the Animus Project, but due to its dangerous nature, she wasn't allowed. That changed when she learned Abstergo was developing a portable animus. Layla decided to create her own version, one that didn't require the user to be a direct descendant, to impress Sophia. After the events of the movie, Abstergo's site was infiltrated and all contact with her was lost. Layla kept her work secret until October 2017, when she was sent to the Qattara Depression region in Egypt to retrieve an artifact. While there, she used her animus to relive the memories of ancient mummies, eventually discovering that they were of Bayek and Aya, the founders of the Hidden Ones. And that's where Layla's story truly begins. Now finally, let's talk about Jacob and Evie in this last section of the video. Talking about Jacob, he was born on 9 November 1847 in Crawley, England, just 4 minutes after his twin sister, Evie. Their mother, Cecily, died during childbirth, and their father, Ethan, traveled to India to mourn, leaving the twins in the care of their maternal grandmother until he returned in 1853. From then on, Ethan personally raised and trained Jacob and Evie as assassins. While Evie excelled in stealth and learning the Brotherhood's ways, Jacob preferred hands-on action, and he spent his days practicing combat and exploring the streets. He often got into fights, but his brawling skills kept him safe. In 1862, the Indian assassin named Ajay visited the Frye household. Delivering a cryptic letter, Ethan pursued him, bringing Jacob, Evie, and George Westhouse, their mentor which we see in the beginning of the game, along, which marked the twins' early exposure to real assassin operations. Jacob eventually completed his training and partnered with Evie and George on several missions around Crawley. Unlike Evie, Jacob preferred direct confrontation over stealth, relying on his brute strength and instincts. In January 1868, their father Ethan passed away. Jacob and Evie, already in assassin attire, quietly assumed their father's legacy. Shortly after, they were sent to Croydon, where their first major assignments involved taking down Templar targets like Rupert Ferris and David Brewster, marking the start of their rise as London's most famous assassins. And from that point onwards, their lives changed forever. And that's it for this massive video. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and also consider subscribing because a lot of the work gets put into making such kind of videos. We'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.